Hey Garth, how's it going?
Great, Jason. How are you doing?
I'm really good. It's man, we're wrapping up the month of George. What
Yep.
a fun month. Who would have known that we would have gotten ourselves into these kind of conversations all that time ago, hey?
You mean from like 3 years ago?
Yeah, now here we are, 150 some episodes in.
Yeah. Who
Incredible.
would have
Yes.
who would have thunk it?
Who would have thunk it? Now, we talk a little bit in this podcast about jobs or
Hmm.
opportunities to observe jobs.
Yeah.
Garth, if you weren't ahead of school, what
Hmm.
job do you think you'd be best at and why?
What job do I think I would be best at? That's a very different question. I think I would be a really I'm trying not to answer from like what I would dream, like a dream job would be. Um, I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, I could be a really good manager of like a retail store or
Yeah.
or a bed like a bed and breakfast.
Yeah.
Like I would love to just like serve people like good morning, how you doing? I don't mind to cook or bake and stuff like that. My wife and I have, we've shared shared some time at different bed and breakfast. I think it'd be so fun. I think it'd be really good at it.
I think
What
you'd be
about
good at
you?
it too. I don't know. I actually asked a question without having an answer myself.
Come
I
on,
think,
man.
no, I'm serious. The reason I ask questions is because I observed my brother at work a few times. We talked about it in the podcast, and
Yeah.
he's a chief innovation officer of a mid-sized tech company in Vancouver. And I think it'd be really fun to be in that role. I'm not sure I'd be good at it though.
Hmm.
But what you just said reminds me of unreasonable hospitality, and they talk a lot about mantra mapping in
Yeah.
that, and they talk about the user experience. And I
Yeah.
think that all ties into what we're talking about with George, because
Mhm.
I think to be good at this work, you have to both hold this innovative mindset in your mind, and you've got to have great principles behind what you do. And I think these are the two books that George offers us, and that we've just talked about. And I think this podcast, this one in particular, will get us deeper into those topics as we move ahead.
All right. Nicely done, Jason. Nicely done. I want you to come back to us and think about what
You
job, if
got
you
it.
weren't in
You got it.
education, what would it be? But listeners, you'll have to wait to the end of the podcast for this one. Hope you enjoy
Okay.
this.
Enjoy the show.
Lassoing leadership, sharp and true. Beard's Book Club got wisdom for you. Turn the pages, let the stories flow. Unpacking lessons as we grow.
Welcome back to Lassoing Leadership. This is Beard's Book Club. We're into season 3, and we're into a number of books. Anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm Jason Rogers. I'm one of the hosts, and I'm here with my talented and dedicated host, Garth Nichols. Garth, it's good to see you. How are you doing today?
I'm really good, really good. I'm pretty excited after the month of George here. I'm pretty excited because he's got me thinking about a lot of things.
Mhm.
One of which is storytelling. Uh, the idea of like mantras, stuff like that. You and I've talked about earlier. So yeah, I'm really excited to wrap this up and then like have some really solid takeaways and apply that to my leadership.
I mean, it has been the month of George, and I think we should get in on all of that and try to unpack it. I mean, starting with the Innovator's Mindset, book that came out 10 years ago, George had told us in that podcast that he wanted to build a book or write a book that would endure time, that would last beyond the reach of the kind of publishing cycle. And I think
Mhm.
he's done it. The Innovator's Mindset is truly one of those. I want to get into that. And his second book, Forward Together, which is just released, is an altogether different beast, but similar. And I think we'll get right into that. But before we get too far into it, tell me a little bit, Garth. I think in our national network of independent schools, you're often seen as a very innovative leader and now head of school. What are your takeaways from our time with George, or just from your thoughts on innovation? Like, what are the critical components? What are the upsides and downsides? Where should we be paying attention when we think about innovation in schools?
That is a really big question.
Yeah, but I
Um,
think you can do it. Like, I think you can bring this to our listeners in a
well,
way
listen.
that is going to reframe their
Okay.
thinking around innovation. So give me your
Oof.
best.
Well, I often say that there is no other more exciting quote unquote industry to be in than education. The way like the way that we understand the way the brain works, how people interact together, our nascent and growing understanding of a future, which is Yogi Berra once said, the future ain't what it used to be, and the unique position that schools are in, right? Schools are, almost everyone has to go through the institution known as school, has to learn the curriculum that's provided by the governing body or whatever that may be, and is assessed and, for lack of a better term, like judged on their performance, and that performance influences heavily their understanding of the world, the way the world works, but also their place in it, in shaping the world. And so with all of these different factors coalescing around, like, let's just call it grade 10, let's just call it grade 10 Canadian history. How we understand history is not how we understood it. The role that history plays now is not the role that history will play in the future. And so you have to be thinking about the strategic and important role that the educator themselves play in the learning process of the student, as well as how that student themselves are changing, in terms of their well-being needs, in terms of their learning needs, in terms of what's out there, cognitive abilities, etc. Like, there's just so many things that are at the intersection of that interaction between a student and a teacher in the curriculum that we can't not be innovating all the time. Like, it's way too exciting. So when it comes to what I'm thinking about with George, what I really like about the innovator's mindset is the way that he prioritizes that schools need to be learner-centered, right?
Yeah,
not
learning,
not learning centered. And there's a big difference here, right? And so it's up to teachers to ask themselves really good questions. And I would argue it's up to schools, leaders, curriculum leaders, whatever, these critical questions. And one of them is, what questions do you think are vital to understanding those who serve in education? Right? What are some ways that you can get in the middle of learning to understand the needs of those that you serve? And so this resonates with you and I, because we talk about servant leadership. But innovation doesn't have to be these big grand programs or things like that. Innovation, you borrow from design thinking, human-centered design. You're asking critical questions about the lived experience now and how that will serve them into the future.
I think what you're offering, is this opportunity to think about the second word in George's title, right? Innovator's mindset. And I think they're equally valued inside, George's thinking. And I think what I've taken from him over the time is that it's more about the way we think about it as opposed to what we do. Having this, openness, as Dweck would say, the growth mindset to change and purposeful change and empathetic change, where we understand a user's experience. I think that's what I'm taking from George's time, is like, how do we lean in on those competencies and how do we encourage that in our staff?
Yeah. And, this book, I love this book for a lot of reasons. One is that it focuses on the teacher experience. And I think I've highlighted this before, but chapter 12, the title of that chapter is create meaningful learning experiences for educators, right? So we can't just expect our educators to thrive in these different ways. We actually have to, as leaders, set them up to have those meaningful learning moments, to role model them and actually make them part of the culture. In that way, we're getting towards the mindset that you talked about.
Yeah, I think, the other thing that George really does well, and we've noticed this on social media, Garth, as well as like in his books, is he stays active in reminding us of what's important in this mindset, in this innovator's mindset, or in this professional growth world. And I think he's constantly encouraging us all to think like that. And I think it comes back to, I guess, our practice, Garth, and I want to talk about your practice as a leader a little bit, is what are the things you do to encourage your immediate reports, like your circle of influence, whether it's through, your school or other PD opportunities that you offer? What are the provocations you offer to encourage people to stay curious and stay innovative and keep that mindset alive and growing? Where have you found success?
Oh, well, I'm in my first year as head of school at Kingsway College School, so I don't know that I have measures of success just yet. But some of the things that I have done, which I'm pretty proud of and I've gotten good feedback on, is I overt my theory of different theories of change. And I invite I
Right.
invite everybody into those theories of change. And my favorite one is about the re-wolving of Yellowstone National Park. You can find this on YouTube, How Wolves Change Rivers. And they talk about this trophic cascade. And for me, I use that as an analogy. Like, it doesn't have to come from the apex predator. Like, it doesn't have to come from the head of school. You can introduce ideas anywhere in that ecosystem and you will see changes. So we have to be very mindful and deliberate in what changes we want to see. And then I invite people into that theory of change. And then the other one, which I love, is the lone nut and the first follower concept.
Oh yeah, that's a great one. Yeah,
it's
I
a
love
great
that.
little clip from a TED talk, and it's this idea of like really good leadership is actually really strong following of people
Mhm.
and supporting them, right? How you turn a lone nut into a movement, I think, is the phrase. So I invite people into understanding theories of change first and foremost. And then, as George says, you have to innovate with people, not for people. And so how are you innovating with, how are you inviting them into the conversations in meaningful ways? And then the third piece would be just making sure that when you invite people in these conversations, that they're not speaking into a void. Like you're not, you have to acknowledge it. And you might take in that input and say, thanks for the input. I'm moving in a different direction. And here's why, right? So you can say, I understand your input. I'm just not moving forward with it. Even that as a feedback loop is really, really vital. And then the other side is, if you are moving forward with an innovation or with an idea or a project, that you show people, this is what I heard, and this is why we're moving in this direction. So those are three things that I do. What about you?
Oh, I just want to tell one story. It's a short one, but a number of years ago, I was working in a school, and we had one Friday block a month off. We weren't sure what to do with, and we noticed that we had this pent up innovation energy inside our staff, and so there's a few of us got together and said, why don't we just call them Spark meetings? And we decided that Spark meetings would be exactly this. You had to work with one other person because we were looking to increase collaboration. You could work with 5 people, but you couldn't do it on your own. You couldn't do anything in regular practice. So marking is out of the question, long-term planning, short-term planning, all out of the question. And you just had to be learning about something. So those were the parameters. And then staff came back and said, well, does it have to be in my curricular area? Does it have to be about students? Does it have? And the answer was no, 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 no. If you can meet those criteria, you're working with at least one other person. Yep. It's learning something net new, and it's not day-to-day practice. You can do whatever you want. And so we did this for a full year, and it was just absolutely amazing what we saw in the space of building a learning culture. We had people flying drones around the school. We had people creating different poetry or example. It was just so unbelievably creative. And I think it just created some of this innovator mindset. I'm not sure it had a direct impact on day-to-day practice or day-to-day learning for students, but I do think it created a bit of a culture of learning, and that's what we're after.
Yeah, I mean, teacher working conditions are student learning conditions, right? And
yes,
you're creating the conditions for them to experiment, for them to innovate, for them to seek, get joy in their learning. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was totally joyful. You would hear and the interesting outcome, Garth, was the day ended about 3:30 every Friday, and it was rare that people were leaving at 3:30. We most often see them leaving at 4 or going for an after work social and talking about what they've been working on because it was so energizing for them. And so I love that. If you have the time and space to do it, it's worth a shot. It definitely worked.
Oh, that's great. And it leads me to another concept we're moving to his second book now, Forward Together. It leads me to this other concept where you are making sure that there is, for lack of a better term, a new smell coming into the culture of the school. And one thing that really struck me from this book was the title of a chapter says, "Don't get used to the smell." As an analogy.
I can validate this because we've talked about a half dozen times since that last interview. Yeah. And you brought up this point every time. This is sticky, right?
Well,
and that kind of
it is
made to stick moment. So tell me why this is so sticky and smelly for you, Garth. What why is this so on your mind?
It's so on my mind because sometimes schools are institutions, and institutions are meant to resist change, right? And so it's possible for us to sit within a system that we don't like and just get used to it. Sit within systems and structures that we don't agree with, or we see opportunities, but that we just don't get to change, because we just get used to it. We figure the tension, the friction to move that big rock, that's the concept of Grant Lichtman's book, Moving the Rock. But to move that rock requires too much energy. And so we'll just sit here with the rocks. We'll just sit here and get used to the smell. And so what you did in that story that you told was that, you were giving them professional development to allow them to explore things which are education adjacent, but certainly culturally relevant. And it's this idea of, renewing that smell and being like, you know what? Thanks, Jason. I'm smelling that smell again for the first time, and I really want to change that. And so there's some inspiration there too. And I really appreciate that about this work forward together. How do we ensure that in our schools, we're injecting like real world, authentic feedback from the future of post-secondary, from the future of like the world of work? How are we making sure that our faculty see the need and urgency to continue to innovate? And again, not these huge different programs and stuff like that, but innovating in terms of innovating with the students and with the families, with other colleagues as well.
I think, Garth, it really brings up a few things for me. One is, the power of network is actually front of mind as you're talking about it. And when I think about power network, we've all got the networks, whether it's, ASCA, which is Alberta's teachers organization, or CASE, which is our national organization, or NAIS, which is the, American, or just even the schools in your region.
CIS Ontario, Cohort 21.
CIS, and you have this chance to do it, but it actually takes, you have to be active in the pursuit. You can't be passive in the pursuit. I think that's the first thing. And the second thing, and we can come back to that if we like, but I think the second thing is don't limit ourselves to this educational bubble, because education itself has its own smell, right? We get used to it. This is the world we live in. Some of my best visits have been to industry. Go and see a tech company. Go downtown and see, in Calgary, see oil and gas and how they operate. Go see financial in Toronto. Go see the trades. Like these things, I think are really important.
Where have you found yourself in your professional development where you are one of a few from the educational sector?
Lots of places. Honestly, this role that I've been in opens doors to lots of opportunities to see industry. But I tell you, the most impactful one was about 10 years ago. I had the chance to go spend a day at work with my brother in Vancouver, and he's a chief innovation officer for a middle-sized tech company. And he was basically like, bring your brother to work day. I just went and hung out with him in his office and in his space. Yeah, just no awesome. Expectation. Like I didn't go there with a plan to learn anything, but actually just seeing how people were working and what they're working on, and just hanging out, drinking coffee. At the end of the day, they have a little beer tap in there. So we had a beer with the folks in the office, and
now we know why you went.
Meeting with the CEO, and all these things. But I think just that opportunity did enlighten me to like, what are workspaces and how are we heading in that direction? How might even our junior and senior high classes emulate that in some respect to get them ready for what might be part of the future work? Certainly it's not every future work, but I've had those opportunities. What about you, Garth? I suspect that you've done your fair share of adventuring and exploring.
Yep. I did. Seth Godin used to run a program called Alt MBA.
All about this. Sounds amazing.
Yeah, that was pretty incredible in terms of looking at business through an entirely different lens, and just meeting people from around the world and getting their input. And it was you had to be very vulnerable in this program too, talking about your world of work and how it can be reshaped or reimagined. That was really cool. And then, one of the first people we had on this podcast was my professor from Royal Roads, which I thought was a pretty incredible program. And that was values-based leadership. And even though leadership is the commonality, to hear about different aspects of leadership, different org structures, and how people navigate that from different industry was like really powerful. We had quite a few like great friendships form out of that, and certainly a very reliable network of people that I could reach out to at any time. And it's like, yep, we've got our common language and we've got our common approaches, so we can give each other feedback on things. And I think that's so valuable.
I think as we bring this back to Month of George, I think George would encourage us to do two things. One, capture those mantras, if you will, or capture those stories as a part of our experience, as a part of our truth telling. I think the second thing is he would say your network is probably your most valuable tool, and you need to water those seeds of network to see them flourish. And I think, like, if we were to put forward a leadership challenge in this, like we so often do, Garth, I would say, get out there and find 3-4 networked opportunities where you can talk to people inside your field and outside your field and keep those relationships going, because you don't know where they're going to go. And I mean, George and I are case in point, having met for the first time in 1995, crazy 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And we've managed to, maintain a long distance friendship and professional relationship over that time, but it doesn't happen by accident. It happens by, you do it on purpose. It's all very purposeful. And let's put that forward as a challenge to our listeners today.
I love it. And also, another challenge, if you haven't already, pick up this book, Forward Together, because they do have great questions at the end of every chapter that will make you think. So just grab it off the side of your desk, and that's a way to keep the smell fresh in your nose.
Now, speaking of fresh smells, we are about to move into a triad that has an absolute, daisy of a guest, I would say, a rose of a guest. Dr. Jody Carrington is going to join us in the next triad, Garth.
Yeah.
What do you have to say about this series of podcasts? What do you think's coming at our listeners?
A lot of energy, that's for sure. Dr. Jody Carrington brings it. She's a professional podcaster. She works in the space of well-being and all those good things. But Jason, you brought her to the pod. Why don't you tell us why you think it's important that we hear her work?
Well, she is so impactful on the social emotional well-being side of education. Yeah. She's widely known for her writing and for her speaking, and dare I say, for her swearing. She has a very, very candid mouth. She can, but we'll have to put an explicit stamp on this upcoming interview, because there are a few colorful words in there. But I mean, more than anything, she brings the real live experience truth. Like, she just brings it in such a raw but informed way. And she just resonates with so many people. And I can't wait for her to, share her insights on feeling seen and on, kids these days and what the future looks like. We're in for a real treat in the next days.
Kids these days. All right, listeners, thanks for joining us. Thank you to George as well, prolific writer, giving us his time. That was really great. We hope you enjoyed it. And Jason, why don't you take us home?
All right, everybody. Until next time, keep leading and reading the Lasso way. Almost messed up our own tagline. Okay, take it easy.
Thanks everybody. Oh, Jason, that was a great podcast. Thanks for that. I love that you shared the story of your brother. Mm-hmm. But as we kicked off the pod, we're going to try and go full circle here. Jason, if you weren't in education, would you rather be in the retail industry or in a rock band?
Yeah, no, it's easy. I think, no, it's not that easy. I think I'd be better in a retail space and worse in a rock band, but I'd rather be in a rock band. And I think
let's go with retail space. Let's go with retail space.
Okay.
Would you rather be in the retail space or in culinary design? Working with food.
Culinary design, it's in my roots. My dad was a chef, and I love the creativity in that space.
Okay, but would you be good at it?
I think I'll be good at it with a little practice.
Okay. And culinary, would you be good at culinary, or would you be better in a rock band?
Culinary. I'm definitely cut out for that. I think you've nailed it, Garth. I think I would actually really embrace probably being a head chef. And I would actually probably take that and parlay it into running a restaurant. I think that would be wicked. You've done it, buddy. Chef. I don't know how you got me there.
Yes, chef. All right. Maybe we should do a podcast based on episodes of The Bear.
Yes,
leadership lessons from The Bear.
Let's go.
R-rated and beware. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
coffee, grab your seat. It's time to learn, it's time to meet. Garth and Jason setting the tone. Leadership lessons to take back home. Lassoing leadership, sharp and true. Beard's Book Club got wisdom for you. Turn the pages, let the stories flow. Unpacking lessons as we grow. Keep leading the lasso way. Together we'll grow stronger every day. So plug in your headphones and let's start the show. With lessons from Ted, we'll learn and grow. Lassoing leadership, sharp and true. Beard's Book Club got wisdom for you. Turn the pages, let the stories flow. Unpacking lessons as we grow. Keep leading the lasso way. Together we'll grow stronger every day. So plug in your headphones and let's start the show with lessons